The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zeth Ka stepped forward, his 6 legs clicking against the polished crystal floor. Around the circular hall, representatives from 12 different star systems sat in judgment, their various forms of eyes fixed on the trembling Vorthan diplomat. "You expect us to believe," Senior Counselor Ninth Prime's voice echoed through the chamber, "that these humans single-handedly destroyed your entire invasion fleet?" Zeth Ka's mandibles clicked nervously. 3 months had passed since the disaster at Sol 3, and still no one believed his reports. The assembled aliens, klaxons with their stone-like hides, ethereal gossamer beings floating in containment fields, and the towering hegemony overlords, all stared at him with expressions ranging from amusement to outright mockery. "Honorable counselors," Zeth Ka began, his translator struggling with his anxiety-shortened breaths. "I witnessed it myself. The planet they call Earth. It's not like anything in our databases. The creatures there are primitives," interrupted Counselor Vex 9, her crystalline form pulsing with dismissive blue light. "Barely past chemical rockets. Our scouts confirmed they haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Zeth Ka felt his confidence crumbling. He'd lost everything in that attack: his fleet, his reputation, his career. And now, the one thing he had left, the truth, was being dismissed as the ravings of a broken commander. "The human homeworld registers as a class Thoth-themed Deathworld," Zeth Ka pressed on desperately. "Gravity twice our standard, toxic atmosphere composition, extreme weather patterns, and therefore perfect for conquest," sneered General Korth Vask, his war-scarred carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. "Deathworlds produce strong slaves. That's basic military doctrine." The general's words sparked approving growls from the military representatives. Zeth Ka felt his hope dying. They saw Earth the same way his fleet commanders had, as just another conquest, another resource to exploit. "You don't understand," Zeth Ka's voice cracked. "The humans, they don't just survive on their world. They thrive on it. They've turned that nightmare planet into their weapon." Senior Counselor Nith Prime raised a foreclaw for silence. "Ambassador Zeth Ka, your service record was exemplary before Sol 3. We're willing to overlook this incident and reassign you to a mining colony position." The offer was generous, but Zeth Ka could see the truth in their alien faces. They thought he'd gone mad, lost his nerve, made up stories to cover his military incompetence. "What about the warning beacons?" Zeth Ka tried one last time. "The automated distress signals my ship sent before malfunctioned in the solar radiation." General Korth Vask cut him off. "We've already launched a proper invasion force. 3 full battle fleets, properly equipped this time. They'll show these humans what real warfare looks like." The chamber erupted in approving sounds, clicks, hisses, and harmonic tones that spoke of confidence and anticipated victory. Zeth Ka stood alone in the center, watching his warnings fall on deaf ears. As the council dismissed him with barely concealed contempt, Zeth Ka caught sight of the strategic display showing the second invasion fleet's departure vectors. 300 ships, carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. He wanted to feel relieved that they'd finally take action. Instead, a cold dread settled in his stomach as he remembered the last thing he'd seen before fleeing Earth's system. Human children playing in the ruins of his battleships, using pieces of hull plating as sleds while their parents salvaged weapons like they were gathering firewood. The council would learn the truth soon enough. The question was, would any of them survive it? Captain Sarah Chen gripped the bridge railing as another explosion rocked the ISS Defiance, humanity's first and only interstellar vessel. Sparks cascaded from damaged consoles, while her crew fought to keep their experimental ship together. "Incoming. Transmission," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. It's not human, Captain." Chen's heart hammered. After 2 years of faster-than-light travel, they'd finally found what they were looking for, and what they hoped they'd never find. Proof that humanity wasn't alone. "Put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing something out of nightmares. The alien's face was a mass of writhing tentacles surrounding a central eye the size of Chen's head. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Primitive vessel, You have entered hegemony space without authorization. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Chen's weapons officer, Commander Jackson, looked up from his console. Captain, I'm reading 3 ships, each one the size of a city. We're completely outgunned. The alien continued. I am War Leader Scythe Nax of the 2nd Pacification Fleet. Your species will serve as laborers in our expansion. Resistance is futile. Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We're explorers, not conquerors. Perhaps we can— Your planet has been designated for immediate harvest, Scythe Nax interrupted. Your resistance to our advance force was unexpected. But you will learn that defying the hegemony brings only suffering. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Chen's mind raced. Advance force? Resistance? What were they talking about? Captain, Rodriguez's voice was barely a whisper. I'm detecting massive fleet movements. They're heading for Earth. The tactical display showed a nightmare scenario. Hundreds of contacts, each representing a ship larger than anything in Earth's defensive fleet. The aliens had been building this force for months, maybe years. How long until they reach Earth? Chen asked. At their current speed, 18 hours, Jackson replied. Captain, our quantum communication array was damaged in that last attack. We can't warn Earth. Chen closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her species' survival pressing down on her. The Defiance was humanity's most advanced ship, but it was nothing compared to what they faced. Her crew of 35 against an armada that could level continents. Orders, Captain? Jackson asked quietly. Chen opened her eyes, and her crew saw something that would become legendary in the years to come. The look of a human who'd been backed into a corner with nothing left to lose. We're going to stop them, she said simply. The bridge fell silent. Commander Jackson cleared his throat. Captain, with respect, we have 1 ship. They have 300. Yes. Chen nodded, moving to the communications console. Rodriguez, open a channel to the alien fleet. All frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Chen leaned into the microphone, her voice carrying across the void to the hegemony armada. Attention, alien fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of Earth. You say you've already met my species. You say we've resisted you before. I don't know what happened, but I know this. If you're planning to attack my world, you'll have to go through me first. War Leader Scythe Nax's laughter echoed across the channel, a sound like breaking glass. 1 ship against our might? Your species' arrogance knows no bounds. Maybe, Chen replied, her finger hovering over the weapon's activation switch. But you're about to learn something important about humans. We don't know when to quit. The channel closed and Chen turned to her crew. Every face showed the same expression. Terror mixed with grim determination. They all knew they were about to die. They just didn't know they were about to make history. War Leader Scythe Nax settled into his command throne, tentacles coiling with anticipation. Around him, the bridge of the eternal torment hummed with activity, as his crew prepared for what should have been a simple execution. Target the human vessel, he commanded. 1 focused burst should— Sir! His tactical officer's voice cracked with confusion. The human ship. It's not there. On the main display, empty space mocked them where the primitive vessel had been. Moments before, Scythe Nax's eye dilated with rage. Find them! A ship that size cannot simply disappear. The answer came in the form of explosions blossoming across his flanking cruiser's hull. The bone harvest lurched sideways, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Impossible, Scythe Nax breathed. How did they penetrate our shields? The human ship materialized from behind the damaged cruiser, moving with impossible precision, between the massive hegemony vessels. Its weapons, laughably small by galactic standards, carved through armor plating like it was paper. They're using kinetic bombardment, his weapons officer reported, disbelief coloring his translator's output. Simple metal slugs accelerated to near light speed. Scythe Nax's mind reeled. Kinetic weapons were considered primitive, inefficient compared to plasma or antimatter systems. But these humans had somehow turned crude physics into devastating art. The human ship danced between return fire, exploiting blind spots with surgical precision. Every movement was calculated to use the hegemony's own massive ships as shields, turning their superior numbers into a disadvantage. Sir, they're targeting our engine manifolds specifically. They know exactly where to hit us, another officer called out. Jam their communications, Scythenax snarled. They must have inside intelligence. No outside communications detected, sir. They're learning our weaknesses in real time. On the display, the Defiance weaved through a storm of plasma, fire that should have vaporized it a dozen times over. Its pilot flew like they'd been born in the void, reading the pattern of attacks before they were even fired. Pattern analysis complete. Chen's voice came over an open channel, calm as if she were teaching a flight class. Your ships are powerful but predictable. You rely on overwhelming force because you've never faced an enemy that thinks differently. The Bone Harvest listed heavily, its main engines dark. The Defiance was already moving towards Scythenax's second cruiser, the Marrow Grinder. All ships. Convergent fire pattern Alpha, Scythenax roared. Nothing survives that. The space around. The human ship erupted in a web of destruction that could have melted an asteroid. When the energy dissipated, every sensor expected to find debris. Instead, they found the Defiance intact, racing along the energy discharge paths their own weapons had created. They used our attack as a screen, his tactical officer whispered, in awe. They flew through the discharge wake. Sir, communications reported. The human is broadcasting on all frequencies. She's giving us a lesson on space combat. Chen's voice filled the bridge again, steady and professional. Attention, Hegemony Fleet. You've been fighting ground-based civilizations too long. You've forgotten that space has 3 dimensions. Your formations assume your enemy will face you directly. The Defiance suddenly dove below the galactic plane, disappearing from their targeting solutions. Moments later, it emerged above the fleet, having somehow looped around their entire formation without detection. She's been studying us, Scythenax realized with growing horror. Every attack pattern, every response. She's treating this like a training exercise. Sir, the Marrow Grinder reports critical damage. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Scythenax stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 hours ago, he'd commanded the most powerful battle group in hegemony space. Now, one human, in an obsolete ship, was dismantling his fleet piece by piece. This is impossible, he muttered. One ship cannot defeat 300. Chen's voice came through the comm one final time, and there was something different in her tone now. Something that made Scythenax's combat-hardened warriors shrink back from their stations. War leader, you're right. One ship can't defeat 300. But you're not fighting a ship. You're fighting a human. And we've been preparing for this fight our entire evolutionary history. The Defiance suddenly accelerated directly at the Eternal Torment, on what could only be a suicide run. Scythenax smiled grimly. Finally, the primitive was acting predictably. He had no idea what was coming next. All weapons, target the human ship, Scythenax commanded, watching the Defiance streak toward his flagship. This ends now. The Eternal Torment's massive plasma cannons swiveled to track the approaching vessel. At this range, there was no escape. The human would finally learn the price of defying the hegemony, firing in 3, 2, 1. The barrage erupted from his ship's hull, enough firepower to crack a moon. But where the human ship should have been, there was only empty space. Where? Scythenax's question died, as proximity alarms screamed throughout the bridge. The Defiance hadn't been destroyed. It had somehow passed through the weapon barrage and now hung motionless directly above his flagship's command section, so close their shields were actually touching. Impossible range, his tactical officer gasped. They're inside our minimum. Targeting radius. Chen's voice came through the comm, calm and conversational. Your weapons are designed for long-range fleet engagement. You've never had to fight something that could get this close. Through the bridge's transparent aluminum viewport, Scythenax could actually see the human ship's hull. He could make out individual markings, battle damage, even what looked like a small viewport where a single figure stood watching him. You want to know the real difference between your species and mine? Chen continued. You hunt in packs because your prey runs. Humans learned to hunt alone because our prey fought back. The Defiance suddenly moved, not away from the flagship, but along its hull, staying in the weapon-blind spot. Small cutting beams emerged from the human ship, precision tools meant for asteroid mining that were now slicing through his ship's armor like surgical instruments. "They're cutting into our power distribution network," his chief engineer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "If they sever the main conduit—" The bridge lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in moments later, bathing everything in red light. Around them, the other ships in the fleet found themselves facing a horrifying reality. Their flagship was being taken apart by a ship they couldn't target without destroying their own command vessel. "Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals," communications reported. "The other fleets, the ones heading for Earth, they're gone." Scythe-Nax's eye went wide. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "No response to hails, no transponder signals. It's like they just disappeared." Chen's voice cut through the chaos again. And this time there was something chilling in her tone. "You really thought we only had one ship?" The main display flickered to life, showing tactical data that made Scythe-Nax's circulatory fluids freeze. Throughout the sector, hegemony fleets were under attack by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before return fire could find them. "Your advanced scouts missed something important about Earth," Chen explained as her ship continued its surgical dismantling of his flagship. "We didn't just survive on a Deathworld. We turned that survival instinct into a way of war." "This is impossible," Scythe-Nax whispered. "Our intelligence said you barely had space travel." "We lied." Chen's response was simple, matter of fact. "Did you really think a species that survived on Earth for millions of years wouldn't learn deception? We've been watching you for decades, learning your tactics, preparing." Through the comm, they could hear other voices, human voices, coordinating attacks across multiple fronts. The scope of the deception began to dawn on Scythe-Nax. This hadn't been a desperate last stand, it had been a trap. "Every ship you sent to our system we've been tracking," Chen continued. "Every base you established in this sector, we've been mapping. Every communication you've sent, we've been intercepting. You came here to conquer us, but you walked into the hunting ground of the most successful predator species in galactic history." The eternal torment shuddered as critical systems failed throughout the ship. But Scythe-Nax barely noticed. His mind was reeling from the implications of what he was hearing. "The first invasion," he managed to say. "Zeth Ka's fleet. That wasn't a victory. That was reconnaissance. Now you're starting to understand." Chen's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "We let them escape with just enough ships to carry word back. We wanted you to send a bigger fleet. We wanted you to commit more resources." "But why?" Scythe-Nax asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Chen's response confirmed his worst suspicions. "Because we weren't planning to just defend Earth. We were planning to end the threat permanently." The tactical display updated again, showing human fleets moving toward hegemony, core worlds. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and nebulae for months were now emerging, their true numbers finally revealed. Scythe-Nax realized with crystalline clarity that he hadn't been hunting prey at all. He'd been walking into the web of a spider that had been patiently waiting for him to get close enough to strike. Ambassador Zeth Ka sat in his cramped quarters aboard mining station Kef-7, staring at the emergency broadcast that was being transmitted across all hegemony frequencies. His compound eyes tracked the scrolling text with growing horror and vindication. Priority. Alert. All hegemony forces withdraw from Sector 7 Gamma immediately. Human forces have overrun forward base Nexus. Repeat. Sol 3 forces are advancing on core territories. The door to his quarters slid open without warning. General Korth Vask strode in, his massive form barely fitting through the doorway. The same alien who had mocked Zeth Ka's warnings now looked haggard, his carapace scarred from recent battles. "You tried to warn us," the general said without preamble. "Tell me everything about their world." Zeth Ka set down his datapad and looked at the being who had dismissed his reports as the ravings of a broken mind. "Now you want to listen?" "I've lost 60% of my forces in the last week," Korth Vask replied grimly. "These humans, they don't fight like anything we've encountered. They adapt. They learn, and they never stop coming. Through the station's viewport, Zeth-Ka could see the evidence of the general's words. Wreckage from hegemony ships drifted. In the station's orbital path, vessels that had been picked apart with surgical precision by human hit-and-run tactics. I told the Council that Earth was a Class 2 Deathworld, Zeth-Ka began, his voice hollow with memory. But I don't think they understood what that means. Every day on that planet is a battle for survival. Every human is born into a war zone. Korth Vask activated the room's holographic display, showing tactical data from recent engagements. Explain this. How does a species with inferior technology consistently outmaneuver forces with centuries more experience? Zeth-Ka studied the battle patterns, recognizing the signature chaos he'd witnessed firsthand. General, what's the deadliest predator on your homeworld? The Vrex hounds. They hunt in coordinated packs, using terrain and ambush tactics. On Earth, Zeth-Ka continued, humans were never the strongest or fastest predators, but they became the most successful because they learned to think like their prey, to anticipate their movements, to turn their own strengths against them. The display showed a human strike force disappearing into an asteroid field after crippling a hegemony. Dreadnought. Moments later, the same force emerged from a completely different vector to attack another target. They're not just using our blind spots, Korth Vask realized. They're creating them. Worse than that, Zeth-Ka replied. They're using our own protocols against us. Every time we try to adapt, they've already anticipated our response. A new alert chimed on the display. Emergency broadcasts from 3 different sectors showed similar patterns. Human forces striking at communication hubs, supply lines, and command centers with devastating efficiency. They're not trying to defeat us in open battle, Korth Vask said, his voice filled with growing understanding. They're dismantling our entire infrastructure. Just like they learned to do on their own world, Zeth-Ka confirmed. Earth doesn't just produce survivors, General. It produces apex predators who learn to hunt in the most dangerous environment in known space. The station's communication array crackled to life with an incoming transmission. The image that appeared on screen made both aliens step back instinctively. It was a human, not in a military uniform, but wearing simple work clothes. Behind her, dozens of other humans moved with quiet efficiency, their faces showing the same calm determination. Attention hegemony forces, the human said, her voice carrying the accent of Earth's southern continents. This is Superintendent Maria Santos of the Luna Mining Collective. You have 48 hours to withdraw from all human claimed territories. Korth Vask's mandibles clicked in confusion. Mining Collective? Where are their military commanders? The human continued, seemingly reading his thoughts. You've been fighting our explorers and scientists, our miners and engineers, people who volunteered for the most dangerous jobs on the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Her smile was predatory. You haven't met our actual soldiers yet. The transmission ended, leaving the 2 aliens staring at a blank screen. The implications of what they'd just heard settled over them like a cold shroud. General, Zeth-Ka said quietly, I need to ask you something. In all your battles against the humans, have you seen any indication of their full military capabilities? Korth Vask reviewed his tactical memories, his expression growing more disturbed by the moment. No organized fleet formations. No standardized weapons or ship designs. They've been improvising everything. Because they haven't been fighting a war, Zeth-Ka realized. They've been playing with us. A new alert appeared on their display. Long-range sensors detecting massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace toward hegemony core worlds. The readings were unlike anything in their databases. General, Zeth-Ka said, his voice barely above a whisper, I think we're about to meet their actual military. Korth Vask stared at the sensor data, watching as humanity's true fleet emerged from the void like a nightmare made manifest. The hunters had been patient long enough. Now the pack was coming home. Senior Counselor Ninth Prime stood in the Grand Council's emergency session, her ethereal form flickering with barely controlled panic. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 12 star systems watched tactical displays that showed their worst nightmares becoming reality. Status report, she commanded, though her voice carried none of its usual authority. General Korth Vask stepped forward. his war-scarred carapace bearing fresh damage from his escape from the outer territories. Total military losses exceed 70%. Human forces have secured every major hyperspace junction between here and their homeworld. How? Demanded Counselor Vex 9, her crystalline form pulsing angry red. They're primitives with barely functional technology. No, Korth Vask replied grimly. They're survivors from a world that tried to kill them every single day for millions of years, and we just gave them a reason to unite. The main display shifted to show recent intelligence from the human advance. The images made several counselors recoil in their chambers. Human ships moved through space with fluid grace, their formations shifting like flocks of birds or schools of fish. No rigid battle lines, no predictable patterns. Just organic, adaptive movement that seemed to respond to threats before they were even made. They fight like their world taught them to hunt, Ambassador Zeth said from his position in the witness section. The former laughingstock was now their only expert on humanity's capabilities. On Earth, prey doesn't stand still. It runs, it hides, it fights back. So humans learn to anticipate, to outthink, to never rely on brute force alone. But their weapons, Counselor Vex 9 protested. Chemical propulsion, kinetic projectiles, they're millennia behind our technology. Zeth mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. Have you ever wondered why they chose those weapons? Why they stuck with what seems primitive? The question hung in the air as tactical displays showed human forces dismantling hegemony battleships with devastating efficiency. They're primitive. Kinetic weapons punched through advanced shields like they weren't there, while their chemical rockets maneuvered in ways that should have been impossible. Reliability, General Korth Vask realized. On a Deathworld, complicated technology fails. Simple, robust systems survive. More than that, Zeth continued. They chose weapons that their enemies would underestimate. We design our defenses against plasma and antimatter. We never considered that someone might perfect the art of throwing rocks hard enough to crack moons. A new alarm pierced the chamber as long-range sensors detected the approach of the human main fleet. The readings made no sense. The ships were too large, moving too fast, and their energy signatures were completely unknown. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. It's from the human fleet. Put it through, Nith Prime ordered. The display flickered to reveal a human unlike any they'd seen before. Where previous human representatives had worn work clothes or exploration gear, this one was clad in form-fitting armor that seemed to absorb light. Her eyes were augmented with technological implants, and when she moved, it was with the fluid precision of a born killer. I am Admiral Samantha Kane of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said, her voice carrying an authority that made the assembled aliens unconsciously straighten. You have 47 minutes to surrender unconditionally. We outnumber you 1,000 to 1, Counselor Vex 9 shouted. Even with your victories, we have resources across dozens of star systems. Admiral Kane's smile was the cold expression of a predator that had cornered its prey. Counselor, let me explain something about humans that your intelligence apparently missed. We're not just from a death world. We're from a world where the average surface temperature can kill you, where the atmosphere is toxic to most galactic species, where the gravity would crush your bones, and where storms can level entire continents. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. And we didn't just survive on that world. We made it our home. We learned to love it. Every human you fought so far, they were volunteers. Scientists, miners, explorers, people who chose to leave the safety of Earth. The tactical display updated, showing the true scale of the approaching human fleet. Ships that dwarfed anything in the hegemony's arsenal, their hulls scarred by what could only be atmospheric entry burns from their own murderous homeworld. What you're about to face, Admiral Kane continued, are the humans who stayed behind, the ones who chose to remain on the most dangerous planet in known space because they thrived in that environment. You're about to meet Earth's warriors, and they've been preparing for this fight their entire lives. This is impossible, whispered Nith Prime. No species could maintain a military force on a class Dwathin Deathworld. Kane's laugh was like breaking ice. We didn't maintain a military force on a Deathworld, counselor. We turned the Deathworld into our military force. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Through the chamber's viewports, they could see the first human ships entering the system, their hulls glowing with re-entry heat that spoke of their origin in Earth's hellish atmosphere. Zethka looked around at the faces of beings who had once dismissed his warnings as the ravings of a broken mind. Now they were about to learn what he had tried to tell them from the beginning. Humanity hadn't just survived on their nightmare world. They had become its apex predator.